Good morning and welcome to the September 13th, 2017 Board of County Commissioners meeting. I'm Kate Flavin, Public Information Officer with Sedgwick County. Commissioners, we have a busy agenda this morning, 2 proclamations, a proposed annexation, resolutions regarding 2 Sedgwick County parks, and several additional items. This morning I've asked Annette Graham to come and share with us some information from aging.
Morning, Commissioners. Annette Graham, Division on Aging. I wanted to share with you today a couple of awards that Central Plains Area Agency on Aging recently received. And the first one is this prestigious Innovations in Aging Award, and this is from the National Association of Area Agencies on Aging. And this is awarded 16 agencies across the United States received an award. And this award was for our First Steps program, which is a 90-day short-term transition program to help seniors that are transitioning back home from nursing homes, hospitals, or rehab facilities. It's a short-term program to help them in those critical first days back home to help make sure that they're able to transition back home safely with some in-home services. We serve about 30 seniors a month with this program, and we were excited to be able to receive this prestigious award. We also received an Innovations in Aging Award, and there were 36 awards presented at the national level, also from N4A, the National Association of Area Agencies on Aging. And this award was for our creative partnership with local universities, the University of Kansas City School of Pharmacy and Wichita State University, where we partner with them to have students be trained on the Medicare counseling program. So this really extends our reach to help seniors and individuals both coming into the Medicare program and making those annual Medicare Part D choices. So we were able to train them. They gain the knowledge about Medicare and the intricacies and complexity of that, but we're also able to extend our reach to more seniors to help with that critical information program. So those are 2 awards we were very proud to receive. It really recognizes the great work that our staff at our agency provide on a regular day-to-day basis. So I was really excited to be able to recognize them for the great services that they provide and their innovation and creativity in developing programs to meet the needs of local seniors. And another great program that we provide, or service we provide, as you see on the screen, is the Senior Expo. It is coming soon. This is our annual event that we provide. It's our 32nd annual Senior Expo, and it is a great experience for individuals age 55 and older and caregivers. It is complimentary admission. This happens on September 28th, coming up soon, and that's 9 to 3 p.m. We offer this at 3 local favorite museums: Botanica, the Wichita Gardens, Exploration Place, and the Wichita Art Museum. This is a great opportunity for seniors and their caregivers to come out and learn about resources, services, opportunities, to have some fun and experience opportunities. Also, there is a free park and ride transportation between all locations. There is lunch at each site, and our annual senior we have health screenings. We also have our local favorite fashion. We have a fashion show every year, and that is a big draw. And that features local seniors doing a fashion show. We have lots of health screenings. We have interactive booths and learning experiences. So I would like to invite everybody to come out, put that on your calendar, and come out.
Well, Annette, thank you for that information, and it sounds like the Senior Expo will be a lot of fun, and I expect that it will be very well attended. But we would want to express to you our appreciation for the great work that the Aging Department's doing, to you and to your staff. You don't get these national awards by accident. It takes a lot of work, and it's not just the fact that you've got experts and people working, but we've got folks who are committed to their mission, who really want to help folks in this category that need extra special help. So it's clear that you all look for good partnerships that will help you do the best job possible, and we appreciate your sensitivity to that. But probably not everybody in this room, but perhaps most, have gone through the process of transitioning a parent or a loved one out of intensive care facility back to home. And you know how critical that activity is to make that a good move, a stable move. So all your work is important, and we really appreciate you and your whole team. And congratulations on those awards.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that, Chairman, I will let you kick off the meeting.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for the introduction, and appreciate all you being here this morning, and those also who are watching by way of television. But with that, I will call to order the regular meeting of the County Commissioners, September 13, 2017. Madam Clerk, first item.
Invocation to be led by Reverend Brent Johnston, First Presbyterian Church. Please remain standing for the flag salute.
Let us pray. O God, in whom we live and move and have our being, we thank you for the precious gift of life that we have received from you and from our parents and those who have nurtured us. May we be good stewards of this life as we seek to order the common life for the well-being of society, remembering that our task is not simply to provide efficient government services, but to remember that the consumers of these services are real people with faces and names and personal histories who are always in need of compassion and justice. This has never been more apparent than with the recent hurricanes in Texas and Florida, leaving many in desperate need of the basics: food, water, shelter. May you rise up people who will be the Good Samaritan to those in need. Now more than ever, O God, help us to see the work that government provides at the local, state, and federal level is of a noble end when we reflect your good intentions for creation, calling forth order out of chaos, light out of darkness, and harmony out of discord. And just as you proclaimed your first work of creation very good at the close of the sixth day, so may this gathering's work be so blessed at the conclusion of their work. Thus we beseech your hallowed Spirit to rest upon the county commissioners, upon their staff, upon the employees and citizens as they begin their work today. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Johnson, thanks for being here today. We appreciate it. Madam Clerk, next item.
Roll call. Commissioner Dennis?
Present.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Present.
Commissioner Howell?
Present.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Present.
Chairman Unruh.
Present. And next item.
Public agenda.
Commissioners, we've had 3 citizens sign up to speak on the public agenda. 2 individuals want to speak on one of our agenda items. And so I would ask if you would prefer to speak now during this time or when the agenda item's called. And I will leave that up to you. Yes?
Only because of a conflict, I'd like to go ahead and speak now.
All right, please step to the podium. And if you would say your name, and we will give you 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Dana Milby. And the last time I appeared before you, I was here speaking on behalf of an intergovernmental agreement in which the Rockford Township hoped to borrow money from Sedgwick County in order to fix our roads. Unfortunately, we've since discovered that that option is not an actual option under the Kansas statutes. Our road conditions in Rockford Townships are still bad. They're stable lately because there's been no rain. Although my brother-in-law recently visited from San Francisco and on his way to our house found himself sideways on 143rd Street. So they're not in good condition, but we all know that the rains are coming. And when the rains come, it means we don't know whether or not we're going to be able to get out to go to work or get home, whether our kids are going to be able to get home in the evening. Mail often can't be delivered. School buses have trouble traveling our roads. And most importantly, emergency services have told us that they can't come out to see us if it's rained. Our personal experience on our roads in the last 5 years, my husband and I have both had to replace our vehicles with four-wheel drives just to make sure that we have a better opportunity to be able to get in and out of our neighborhood. This isn't a new problem. It's an ongoing problem. It's been going on for several years. It pre-existed the current board that currently exists in Rockford Township. And I think part of the problem with the township that we have is that the members of our board are not experts in roads. The township board members are part-time officials. They are elected. They're just citizens like me. I have no experience with roads other than driving on them. I don't know how to maintain them. I don't know how to repair them. I don't know how to fix drainage problems, and neither do our board members. They have some information, but they're not experts. And in the last several years, our roads have deteriorated. Our board members are able to maintain our roads, but they are not able to fix the drainage problems and the other severe complex issues that now exist because of the lack of maintenance. Rockford Township needs your help. The legislature contemplated townships needing help above and beyond their ability to maintain and take care of the issues in their townships. And that option is an intergovernmental agreement with the county in which the township resides. And before you today is an intergovernmental agreement that the township has approved and that we are asking you to enter into with us. This intergovernmental agreement is Rockford Township's only solution to fix our roads and make them safe again. Our roads are in dire condition and we need help. I want you to understand that this intergovernmental agreement does not obligate Sedgwick County in any way to do anything. You can pass the intergovernmental agreement and later on decide we don't want to do anything. We don't want to do what Rockford Township needs. But what it does do is it provides a platform for us to begin discussing what issues exist in Rockford Township and how Sedgwick County can help us get our roads in a safe condition. It does provide the skill set and expertise that Rockford Township needs in order to properly repair its roads. And most importantly, it's not going to cost any taxpayers any money if they do not live in Rockford Township. We understand this is our problem. We want to fix it, and we want to fix it right, but we can't do that without your help. I haven't had the opportunity to meet all of you personally. I have over the last several months gotten to know Commissioner Howell, and it's been a pleasure working with him, and I appreciate his commitment to the citizens of Rockford Township. Chairman Unruh, I know you know my family, and you and Mayor Mayan went out of your way to support me when I ran for judge several years ago, and I appreciate that, even to this day. Commissioner O'Donnell, I appreciate you responding to my email yesterday. I know you have a busy schedule. So I do look forward to meeting all of you and getting to know you all better as we move forward on this issue with the Rockford Township roads. Legally, I know you have no obligation to approve this intergovernmental agreement, but politically and morally, you were elected to protect the health and safety of the citizens of Sedgwick County, and every person that lives in Rockford Township is a resident of Sedgwick County, and as such, they are your constituents. The health and welfare of the residents of Rockford Township is at risk, and we need your help. We trust the expertise that Sedgwick County can offer us, and we need this intergovernmental agreement to pass in order to fix the dire and emergent needs of Rockford Township. So I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you for your comments, Dana. We have another person from Rockford. Do you want to speak now, or did you want to wait until the agenda item's called? I can speak now. Okay.
I'm not nearly as old
If you would state your name and be aware that you have 5 minutes.
It probably won't take that long. My name's Don Thornbrew. I'm also a resident of Rockford on Ellen, just south of 103rd Street. In the last several months, Mr. Howell and I have gotten to know each other and toured our roads in the township separately and met to discuss where we're at. As Dana said, our board of trustees is spending money. I mean, they're hand over fist, it looks like, putting down rock that is so dusty that this morning as I left about 8 o'clock, a pickup came down 103rd. I pulled out on the 103rd, and it was like fog for about 3 minutes with the sun coming through it. If a car had been coming the other way, they'd have ran into me. Because from where you are to me, I couldn't have seen you. And they drive 55, 60 miles an hour, kids going to school. They recently started work on the road on 103rd between Webb and Greenwich, raised it significantly, dug out, I'm sure what they mean to be bar ditches on the north side of the road with a big steam shovel kind of thing, and just left it as bare ground with about in some cases 12 to 15 inch drop off right at the edge of the road where they developed it. So the road goes from, in some places, 2.5 lanes down to just over 1 lane, and at the edge of that 1 lane it drops straight down about that far. My personal experience with the roads, in the last 6 months my daughter's been off the road twice, one time into some trees. My neighbor's daughter totaled her car on 103rd just west of Greenwich. My son totaled his car on 103rd from a big washout that they didn't fix. As Dana said, my wife and I both drive 4-wheel drives now. I'm in a big lifted F-150 just to make sure that I can get out in the mud if I need to get out for any reason. And my wife drives a 4-wheel drive Dodge. It's very serious and it's difficult to explain if you're just not there. Commissioner Howell's been there and seen it. Your own public safety people have looked at it. I spoke to your engineer last week, and he is probably as upset as I am. I mean, we have an apparent willingness to do some work, but no expertise. At the meeting that they had, I asked them, where's your technical consultant? How do you know what you're doing? You know, who's telling you that what you're doing is correct? And there was no answer. They said, well, I talk to a lot of people and I read a book. That doesn't appear to be a good answer to me. I was on a utility district board for 4 years in Texas, and we dealt with drainage, sewage, roads, water. And I know what they're doing isn't correct, but they don't listen, and we need the county's support and help. As Dana said, we're not asking you to spend any money. We want to hire you. I mean, the agreement, as I understand it, says we will develop a project, ask for a bid. Your technical staff can give us that bid, and then Rockford Township can decide if we can afford to pay it. I think that's a good deal for everybody. It keeps your people employed and keeps them busy. It gives us access to fully trained people that know what they're doing to work on areas that are emergent is the word that keeps coming to mind, because people are wrecking their cars and ending up in the ditch. Sometimes they're in the ditch because they come down 103rd and it's only a lane wide or a lane and a half, and they try to pull off the road to let the other car go by. With a teenage kid, they're really coming at you sometimes. With the school bus, you've got nowhere to go. I mean, you just have to find the driveway and pull in and let them go by. We're not asking you to go out and fix our roads for us. We understand that's our problem. But on the other hand, if we don't find a way within our township to resolve this and get our roads safe to where when UPS calls me and says, I can't get past Webb, you have to come out and pick up your part. I work for IBM, and I receive a lot of parts at home. There are a group of people, of which I'm one, that if we can't figure out how to make this work between us, we will try to dissolve the township board and just give it to you. Because at that point, we will have done everything we can do to make this work. But in the end, our home values are going down every day because of the roads. If we were to put a house on the market and somebody drive down 103rd and see what those roads look like, it almost looks in some cases like a zero maintenance farm road that you see up in north central Kansas. I mean, it's just intolerable. It's unsafe. Am I out of time? No.
Okay, thank you for your comments, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to run over. I didn't think I could talk that long. But please consider this.
All right, thank you. We have a comment from Commissioner Howell.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say thank you to Dawn and Dana for taking time to come out and speak with us this morning. This has been an issue that we've been working on. It's one of my top priorities, I think, for about the last year, and the problem really became apparent when we were having flooding issues in 2016. Just to make a couple of other points, and I'll probably talk about this a little bit more when item H comes up for a discussion and consideration this morning. So if you can stick around, that'd be great. I may have other questions for you at that time, but I understand that Dana has to go. But I would just like to say that we had 3 record level floods in 2016. One of those was a 500-year flood, and I'm not blaming anybody in the township for this issue, but the drainage infrastructure was just not in place to manage the amount of water that came, and there was significant damage that ended upon those roads. This was, in my opinion, a result of basically not doing replacement of culverts and doing things that were necessary to keep the roads in good shape for when that day came. It's hard for political leaders to plan ahead for these types of events. If we're not prepared, then when they happen, then we're in a much worse situation. The mill levy used to be down around 4 mils, then it went to a couple of years ago to 8 mils, and then it went to 12 mils, and this year it's 16.4 mils. They're trying to increase revenue, but even at 16.4 mils, next year's budget only generates $328,000 total. And with the type of infrastructure problems they have right now, we estimated with county staff that it would take over $1 million just to make the roads, I would say, minimally good. So if you use 100% of the revenue, it would take about 3 years. And that is a very, very difficult situation to understand that when, as one of the speakers just said, that sometimes when it rains, the kids can't get to school, the people can't get to work. If they don't have four-wheel drives, they can't get in and out of their homes. There were some questions whether 911 could send emergency personnel and get to the homes in case of a fire or a medical emergency, or if they had some kind of other issue needed a sheriff's officer. And we had some confirmation from those groups that would be a problem, that reaching some of these homes after a rainstorm would be problematic. The mail sometimes doesn't get delivered. The school buses won't pick up kids. The number of cars that have been damaged or totaled on these roads, or people gone off the roads. This is just a dire, emergent situation. Those are the words I'd like to use. I'm not blaming anybody. It's no one's fault. But I do think that we are trying to find opportunities within the Kansas laws, how we can partner with the township in a way that doesn't cost other taxpayers money, but be able to use our expertise or our staff to do some things that we are very good at. Our public works personnel are experts in so many ways, and this is really, if this was our problem, we would be able to do this because we have people who know how to fix our roads. That's not a thing for Sedgwick County. We've done that for many, many years, and we're very good at that. But this is not maintaining roads. This is reconstructing roads, and that's why this is different. And so, the question is, are we going to be able to step in and not again, the resolution today is not intended to allow us to maintain their roads, but to allow us to reconstruct the problems. And all the roads don't have problems. They have 42 miles of roads. A lot of those roads are are fine, especially when it's dry. Many of the roads have significant problems, and those areas are going to be very expensive and very complicated to fix the drainage, make sure the drainage has a way to flow to the tributaries and to the streams and rivers. And so this is a very difficult problem. It didn't just develop overnight. It developed over, my opinion, decades. But the situation has now gotten so bad that we need to do something extraordinary. And so anyway, I'll probably make some more comments when the item comes up. I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to come and speak with us. I know it's extremely important, and not just to you, but I've talked to many people in the township. And I guess one more point I wanted to say is this is a township problem, and I think you mentioned that, Dana. This is a financial burden. It's a deferred maintenance issue that the township has developed over time. This is not a county commissioner or a Sedgwick County problem, because the Rockford Township is its own taxing unit. It's its own jurisdiction. They have their own elected officials, and technically speaking, they have the responsibility, and we don't have to do anything. But I do think it's the right thing to do. To the extent that we can do it, it doesn't cost other taxpayers money, and we have the expertise and the skill and the knowledge to do this. I think it's the right thing for us to do. So passing this agreement, as you said already, it just sets up a framework where we can move forward, potentially. At least 4 other things will have to happen for any actual trigger to be pulled on any actual project. And I can explain that when we get to the item H, but I do appreciate you taking time to come out and speak with us today. It's a serious situation, and I'm doing everything I can to help you. So thank you for your comments today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have one other person who wants to speak on the public agenda, and that is Valerie Slaughter. If you would state your name, and you have 5 minutes to speak.
Yes, sir. My name is Valerie Slaughter. I'm here on behalf of a defendant, Eddie Cadell III. He was charged with an alleged rape case June the 28th, 2014. He was put on solitary confinement June the 6th of 2014 for another alleged crime in the Sedgwick County Jail. December the 18th of 2014, John Hanson, court appointed, told my mother, the father, me, and the defendant's mother that the DNA is back and it's not a match in either case. He said, but the district attorney's office does not like it when you don't take the plea deal. My mother fired John Hanson that day. Charles O'Hara was then hired the end of January for $25,000 of my mother's retirement, some of her retirement fund. He took the case the end of January. The first preliminary hearing was April 22nd, 2015, in which the minor child, Carolyn Rouse, took the witness stand and alleged she was raped. The district attorney's office had the burden of proof to prove that. They did not prove it. So, Charles O'Hara represented him April 22nd, 2015. The next court proceeding was a motion hearing, which would have been September the 4th of 2015, in which Judge Wilbert, District Attorney Shannon, Sheila Lyons, Charles O'Hara, one sheriff, and one blonde lady was in the court with me and my mom. We sit there for 1 hour and 47 minutes waiting on court to start at 9. They came out after 1 hour and 47 minutes as Charles O'Hara and one sheriff was walking back and forth from the judge's chambers to the holding cell, at which time they were in the back threatening the defendant, Eddie Cadell III, to take their plea deal. Now, when he came out for court, my mother and I was there. It was about 2 minutes, and the district attorney, Ms. Shannon, she came out of there, and about 2 minutes, she said, I want to hear you say you was, excuse me, this is adult language, and I don't see any kids in here. She said, I want to hear you say you was fingering her, meaning the minor innocent child in the alleged rape case. Charles O'Hara leans over to Eddie Cadell III, my nephew, and said, you gotta say it. She want to hear you say it. He said, I didn't do that. At that point, for $25,000, Charles O'Hara is supposed to stop court. Your defendant did not enter a plea of guilty when he said, I didn't do that in our presence. They continued to pressure him. A couple of minutes go by. They reworded. Judge Wilbur said, refer to your affidavit. Then they told him, you gotta say it. I want to hear you say it. All three of them. It's not my fault. I'm just a messenger and a witness. They're accountable for their own actions. At that point, that was a scare tactic on a defendant. That was not a plea. He said twice, I didn't do that. They were supposed to proceed on to September the 4th of 2015 to the alleged jury trial that was probably not even scheduled. At that point, when they pressured him and said it, on page 12 of the transcript from September the 4th of 2015, there was a motion hearing. This is it. On page 12, you can turn to 5. And this is adult material as well. Judge Wilbur's transcript is very well written, but it's a lie. None of this happened, and there's my mother. We were out of there in 11 to 13 minutes. He said Eddie Cadell III stood in his court and read this. Eddie Cadell graduated from Sowers. He is illiterate. He do not read and write. He didn't read this. None of this happened. So let's go to page 12 of September the 4th of 2015. Judge Wilbur says, starting with 5, adult material. Did you put your penis in her vagina and penetrate her, meaning the minor child? Or did you finger her? At that point, he said Eddie Cadell said yes to fingering. Go back to April 22nd, 2015, the preliminary hearing in which Judge Jeffrey's court heard evidence that was to lay it down to see whether or not there was enough evidence to bind you over for trial. But what he heard was lies. Because if you go back to there, September is after April. This child did not take the witness stand out of 1,700 words of a 30-page transcript, and the word finger is not located in there. I realize this is a court matter, but justice hasn't been served. 2 days ago, he received a letter in Department of Corrections. That said his appeal is denied. Obviously, it was denied because the facts were not told. So, although a polygraph are not admissible in a court of law, I have submitted to one with first-name basis. I am not here to destroy anybody's future or their status in this community or their positions. I'll walk away, but that's an innocent man. And we're all here as his family standing here. You cannot threaten a defendant to say something and then write this nice brief. There's my mother who gave Charles O'Hara $25,000. And he was threatening him. He said, you gotta say it, I wanna hear you say it. I have yet to see justice.
Can you wrap it up quickly because you have used your allotted time?
Okay, are y'all gonna help us free an innocent man, Eddie Cadell? He's sentenced to 22 years to life at 24. There's also another case in Sedgwick County that he alleged attacked another Caucasian male, Christopher Allen Michael Jones. Christopher testified on the preliminary hearing April 22nd that he's in the hospital 3 days. We have court documents that he's getting a plea deal 2 days after. The state of Kansas District Attorney's Office dropped 18 years of his rape to 3 years probation to testify on Eddie Cadell. He said he was in the hospital. He was getting a plea deal, and I have the documents of public record that says that he was getting a plea deal and a pre-sentence investigation. In his transcript from April 22nd, district attorney does not object, meaning that she allowed this lie to persist. Can you help?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to call time on you. This is all the time we allow for public comment. So, do you have one concluding sentence?
Yes, can you help us free an innocent man? We want him back. His brother, Brandon Kersey, just got murdered. He's denied to see his children, and he didn't commit this crime. You can't find the word finger. I've been waiting 1.5 years and called Judge Jeffrey's court for the court reporter, and she can't even find it, and she typed it. So isn't that a threat for a district attorney and a judge and Charles O'Hara to take our money and threaten him in our presence? When you say I didn't do it,
I thank you for your comments. I'm going to have to call time on you. And we, as you have said in your comments, this is a issue for the court system, and the county commissioners do not.
I have yet to see the court. I have yet to see the court render any justice or fairness.
Miss, I understand your comment. I understand your distress. However, we do not have authority of it. Appreciate your comments, but I'm going to.
But isn't the county, isn't the district attorney saving y'all money by the amount of plea deals? Isn't it? You guys are paying to house an innocent person. Don't they save money by plea deals? And the county is affected financially if you get all plea deals.
I'm sure you understand that this is a matter that you'll have to take up with counsel and work through the.
Well, can I get a statistic of how many plea deals that they have saved this county, where that money can be otherwise used for something else?
Yeah. Miss, I get your point and I understand your perspective, but I'm going to have to ask you to take your seat and appreciate your comments. We are not able to enter into this adjudicated issue. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consideration of minutes. Item A, regular meeting minutes of August 16th, 2017.
Commissioners, you've had the opportunity to review the minutes of August 16th and the minutes of August 23rd. Are there any addition or corrections? If not, what's the will of the board?
I move that we approve the minutes from August 16th and August 23rd, 2017. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, call the vote, please.
Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Chairman Unruh.
Aye. Next item, please.
Proclamations. Item C, proclamation declaring limb-girdle muscular dystrophy awareness day.
Commissioners, we have a proclamation, and I have asked Commissioner O'Donnell to read this proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Whereas limb-girdle muscular dystrophy, LGMD, is considered a rare disease that causes muscle weakness and wasting, most commonly affecting muscles of the shoulders, upper arms, pelvic area, and thighs. And whereas LGMD is a group of hereditary, genetic, neuromuscular disorders with over 25 subtypes currently identified and occurs among all ethnic groups affecting both males and females. And whereas LGMD is a progressive, serious, and debilitating condition that has a significant impact on the lives of those affected, with individuals and families often experiencing problems such as diagnosis delay, difficulty finding a medical expert, and lack of access to treatments or ancillary services. And whereas research is ongoing and important advances are being made in understanding the genetic causes for the disease, and there is still no known cure or treatment. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that David Unruh, Chairman of the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners, does hereby proclaim September 30th, 2017 as Limb-Girdle Muscular Dystrophy Awareness Day in Sedgwick County, and encourages its citizens to learn more about this disease.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, you've heard the proclamation. What's the will of the board?
Move that we approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Chairman Unruh.
Aye. And we have accepting today Lisa Vader. Is she here to accept the proclamation?
I'd just like to say thank you to the Commission, who is also our County Health Board, for bringing awareness to this awful disease. I am Lisa Veda, and I have limb-girdle muscular dystrophy type 2I. Awareness is very important to those people who have the disease, but they don't know it yet, and they need to find that diagnosis. Awareness is also important to people like myself who need help and care with this disease, but more importantly, awareness is most important for finding treatments and cure in the very near future, I hope. Thank you, and this proclamation is very much appreciated.
Well, thank you for being here and calling it to our attention, and we do have a comment from Commissioner O'Donnell.
I just wanted to say hi, Lisa. I'm glad to read the proclamation, but thank you for your advocacy, not just on this issue, but on so many issues regarding health in the Sedgwick County area. It does not go unnoticed. You and Dr. Veda do a lot, and we appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item D, proclamation declaring Constitution Week.
Commissioners, another proclamation for your consideration, and I've asked Commissioner Ranzau to read this proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whereas September 17, 2017 marks the 230th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate this occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week. And now therefore be it resolved that I, David Unruh, Chairman of the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim this week of September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through the guardian of our liberties, remembering the lost rights may never be regained.
Commissioners, you've heard the proclamation, and I would move its adoption.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Chairman Unruh.
Aye. And accepting the proclamation today is Miss Susan Newman. She's representing the Daughters of the American Revolution, the local chapter. Glad that you're here today.
Thank you, Chairman Unruh, and thanks, Sedgwick County Commissioners. In mid-September 1787, the U.S. was a nation on the brink. It had won the Revolutionary War, but it was losing the peace. The national treasury was virtually empty, and the economy was faltering, while inflation soared and national and state debts were unpaid. Against this backdrop, the Constitution was written. Our Constitution will be 230 years old on this Sunday, September 17th. The tradition of celebrating the Constitution was started by the Daughters of the American Revolution. Our American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes in this country, and we celebrate their legacy. Today, I have other representatives of 7 of our Daughters of American Revolution chapters in the Wichita area. They are Randolph Loving, Flores del Sol, Martha Loving Farrell, Eunice Sterling, Little Arkansas, Mary Draper, and the Wichita chapters. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here today, and I want to thank you for your efforts to continue to uphold the importance of our Constitution and remind us of that, if not daily, at least annually. And I know that you all have somewhat of a vested interest in that from your positions, but thank you for just maintaining that, keeping the faith, and keeping calling it to our attention. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next item.
New business. Item E. Review Service Plan City of Derby Annexation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Justin Wagoner, Assistant County Counselor. When a city proposes a unilateral annexation, what I mean by that is when it's proposed to be done by the city without the request or consent of the property owners, and where a services plan is required as part of the annexation. Pursuant to County Resolution number 109-2012, the service plan is distributed to county staff and also then presented in front of you. And I would first refer you to the map that's pulled up on the screen here. The property that's in red is what's proposed to be annexed here by the City of Derby. And more specifically, there are 2 parcels, residential parcels. One is approximately 2 acres in size. The other is approximately 3 acres in size. Plus, if you'll notice that a strip of land or of road right-of-way on 87th Street South is also proposed to be annexed by the city. This is near the intersection of Rock Road and 87th Street South, just to the east of that intersection. The parcels comprise Piper Land Addition. It's a 2-parcel subdivision, and it is worth noting there's language in the platter's text of that plat that actually says the owners waive any protest to annexation by the City of Derby. In terms of comments from county staff that have been received at this point, finance staff noted that the annexation would result in roughly $860 annual reduction to the budget of Sedgwick County Fire District number 1, as it would come out of the fire district if it's approved. Public Works also noted there was a joint project for road construction that the City of Derby, Sedgwick County, and then also Rockford Township had contributed towards, where the City of Derby paid, I think, slightly under half the cost of that road improvement project that roughly encompasses the portion of roadway that is proposed to be annexed here. That's near completion at this point in time. MABCD staff had noted that neither of these properties is actually receiving sanitary sewer services from the city at this point in time. And planning department staff reviewed this the proposed annexation. They noted that the ground is within the city of Derby's urban growth area for 2035 as incorporated within the Wichita-Sedgwick County Comprehensive Plan. They also had noted that they did not believe that the annexation, if it were to go forward, would hinder or prevent the proper growth and development of the area or any other city. The city's service plan has to substantially comply with the requirements established by KSA 12-520B. I have reviewed the plan, and as noted in more detail within the backup materials, I reviewed essentially item by item under the statute what's required to be in the service plan, and it appeared to substantially comply with the requirements noted within that statute. If you do have more questions about that when I'm done presenting, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions or discuss that in more detail with you. The Planning Commission is going to review this item on September 21st to review its compatibility with the comprehensive plan. And then also the City of Derby will actually have their public hearing on October 10th where they will consider this annexation. They're required to give notice to the property owners proposed to be annexed for that hearing. And at this point, the recommended action on this item, there's no requirement by statute that you really have to do anything. This is a local resolution that we've come up with to review and potentially provide feedback on this. So the recommended action would be to receive and refile, and then also to make any additional comments or action that you believe may be appropriate. The three different items that we noted in the backup materials would be to direct the county councilor's office to notify the city of any comments made during this meeting. Second option would be to prepare a resolution incorporating any of those comments. And a third option would be to have a county representative appear at the city's hearing on October 10th to provide any comments as well. I'd be happy to stand for any questions that you might have on this.
All right. Thank you, Justin. Are there any comments at this time from the bench? Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the presentation this morning. I was just curious, the map and the backup material does show a development there. I think that's all been platted. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do we have, I don't know who can answer this question. Maybe there's someone in the audience that can. Is there any idea as to when that might develop? Is any idea as to when that's planned to develop? I'm just curious if you know that. And if you don't, that's fine.
Thank you, Kathy Sexton, Derby City Manager. If you're talking about the housing development that is not in question today, but is a neighbor to this,
right, yes.
No, we do not have a timeline.
No timeline. That's great. And then my final question would be, again, this includes the right of way along 87th Street, and my estimates from Rock Road to that point looks like it's about a half mile altogether, including the part that's already been annexed by the Walmart there. But if you include everything from Rock Road to that point on the map, it's about a half mile altogether. Does that include the road itself, or is just the right of way along the side of the road?
It's the road. The
road itself. Very good. I thought that was the case, and I wanted to make a point. I want to say I appreciate Derby very, very much. We've worked together on this. I've declared Public Works, I think, at some point in the past, has identified this as a significant road that needed some kind of help. It was deemed by me anecdotally as the worst road in Sedgwick County, and I think that Public Works agreed with me at the time. We have partnered together with the City of Derby and Rockford Township, and then Westar had a lot of work to do to move some utility poles. But you add all that up together between Rock Road and Greenwich, which is my plan for next spring as another mile. But the entire project, I think, is $1.8 million, and Derby had a significant role in that by providing some money to that project, and so I want to say thank you for that. To the extent that these two homes have lived on the worst road in Sedgwick County, and now probably one of the very best roads in Sedgwick County. And by the way, we're not done yet. I think we're putting some asphalt down, I think, in October, and we'll celebrate that new road in October. But it is clear to me that Derby is committed to these homes and these homeowners, and their quality of life and their access to the City of Derby is clear to me. And so I appreciate what Derby has done, and I am very supportive of the plan today as presented. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Ranzol.
Yeah, I have some questions. So these two parcels that we're talking about, do they have homes on them?
That's correct. Both have homes.
And this housing addition that's shown here, it's not actually there?
It has been platted. I'm not certain how, and maybe Commissioner Howell or Kathy Sexton could speak to how many homes there are in that subdivision, but there is, and it is part of the city. You're talking about the subdivision directly to the west,
right?
Correct? Yeah, it's platted. It's incorporated within the city limits of Derby. I don't know how many homes there are, though.
I'll speak to that. I know basically none of that has been developed yet. There are no homes there at this time. There are 2 homes in the 2 lots there just to the north of 87th Street that are in red on the map. There's a home on each one of those lots, but everything to the west and to the north of that area, there are no homes at this time. It is platted, and my hope is it will be developed at some point. I think 87th Street being paved hopefully will maybe make that move forward a little bit. But
so it's basically a field now?
It is just agricultural right now.
Okay. So the people that are in these homes that are they asking to be annexed?
They are not asking to be annexed at this point. I can't tell definitively if they have a position one way or another on this, but they have not asked to be annexed.
Has anyone spoken with them, and what's the purpose for annexing them then? What's the purpose of this?
To the first question, we have not spoken with them, and on these types of annexations where we review the service plan, we don't reach out to them. However, if this annexation is approved by the City of Derby 3 years from now when you all would review the service plan, we do send out pre-hearing questionnaires on that. But as to the purpose, I think that's probably something that maybe Ms. Sexton would be better.
Maybe the city can
address.
talk to that.
Yep.
Commissioner, if I understand your question correctly, you're wondering why the city is pursuing annexation at all. Is that fair?
And has the city talked to the people here?
We have reached out to them, sent the certified mail, and they have not responded. Other than reminder, though, we approved platting of this land in 2008, and it was on our city limit then, and that was with the requirement and their consent that they would not protest annexation when the day came. Pardon me, when the day came that the City of Derby was ready. And anytime someone's going to plat and build their dream home on the edge of a city, obviously these folks understood that annexation was going to happen someday, and they consented to that in 2008 when they signed that plat. Back to your question, though, why do cities annex? Cities annex because of...
No, I'm asking specifically about these 2. Why are they being annexed at this time?
Right. It is part of our program and our plan that we clean up our borders. We don't appreciate, Sheriff and other folks don't appreciate when cities grow around county areas, and then it creates inefficiencies, donut holes, for example, of growth, of service provision by different government agencies. Folks call 911 and, well, is the county coming or the city coming? Is the fire district coming or the city fire coming? That kind of thing. So just generally speaking, we promote, as do most other cities, orderly growth that is fair in taxation and for services provided, and is clear for public service providers as to who serves which areas. Does that help?
Yeah. So is anyone going to actually call them or go by and ask them if they want to be annexed?
No, sir.
Okay.
We sent them letters, certified mail. They're very well aware of the annexation.
I'm just asking.
In 2008, they signed documents filed in your Register of Deeds office saying they would not protest annexation whenever the city was ready to annex
I understand. Cities have a practice of strong-arming people whenever they want to get platted so they can build their home. They're basically forced to do that. I get that. But I'm just asking some questions about the situation because you have some people who are going to be annexed, possibly against their will. And you have your reasons, but if I look at your boundaries, your reasons don't really fly. But nevertheless, they're going to increase their taxes and not get anything more than what they already have. This happens repeatedly, and I'm sorry if you're offended if I'm going to stand up and ask some questions on behalf of these citizens of Sedgwick County. Cities repeatedly strong-arm and abuse this power, and I'm going to ask questions about it.
Sir, I'm sorry. I certainly did not mean to cause offense. I thought I'd answered your question already, and certainly when this county commission approached the City of Derby last year to help pay for this road, we've been very clear for a year that, in fact, at one point the county was going to force the city to annex the area and the road. Once we paved it, and we said we'd rather you not force us to do that, but this is us following up on promises we made a year ago saying if we're paying for this road, This is for the orderly growth and development of the city. It's not because the city's going to pave somebody else's road because they didn't take care of their road. It was so the city would grow. We were very clear about that. This is about the growth of the city of Derby. I hope that helps.
Commissioner, did you have more?
Well, I'll just say, and my comments are on this. I mean, you're talking 2 houses out by a field. My comments with respect to this, the service plan that Derby does is generally pretty good, but I would suggest to the city that they speak to these constituents and consider not annexing them if they actually don't want to be. I mean, just be a good neighbor. Right now, I mean, that's a field there, and so it's not necessary at this time. But obviously, I can't make them do that. We don't have any say in this matter that's meaningful. I would like to see the state statute changed so that we would, but at least consider, make an effort to communicate to your new prospective constituents. And I'm just saying this because of the experience that I've had in my district. When cities don't act very neighborly and just say you can just do it creates a lot of consternation and resentment or it can. And now, I don't know, maybe they're happy with it. I'm just saying there's only 2 of them there. It's not going to make or break the city to just make an effort and talk to them, but I'm just, to avoid some consternation in the future and any hassles that might happen, I think it's worth the time, and that's just my suggestion, and thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the discussion that just happened, but I would like to just validate one of the comments that was made. We did have discussions when we were trying to identify a road to improve that was important to Sedgwick County, and Manager Sexton, right after my being put into this position, we had discussions about 87th Street and how important it was. And knowing the condition of that and how difficult it was, again, as I said before, altogether about a $1.8 million problem. And the Rockford Township, as we've already discussed, did not have much of a legitimate opportunity to really fix what needed to be done there. We have raised the road, I think, by 4 feet. We've had a drainage infrastructure. It is a very complex project, which is why it's expensive, and it costs the city of Derby hundreds of thousands of dollars to become a partner on this important road. And I would say that these 2 homes are less than 1,000 feet from Derby's largest church. They are also less than 1,500 feet from a Walmart. We did have discussions. Again, I was curious about Derby's interest in or their position on whether they would annex that road. We did have that discussion, and they did say at the time they would prefer to do it on their timetable, and I was okay with that. I think that's great. I think they have demonstrated a perspective that most other cities in Sedgwick County have not annexed the roads along the properties that they've annexed. So in other words, they annexed the property but not the road, leaving the road maintenance to the county or the township. In this case, Derby's been aggressive, and they have taken care of that. They've annexed the roads, and I think that we will work with them to determine who does what along this road, because again, half a mile belongs to the county now, or will shortly, and half a mile belongs to the city. And we'll have to work with them to find out who does what when, but that's actually good for us as well. This discussion happened. We didn't have to force this. They voluntarily followed through and did exactly what they said they would do. I have waited for someone to contact me that would be opposing this. I've had no one contact me. I know the neighbors in that area. No one's upset about this annexation. In fact, I'll tell you, I've had so many people happy about the road. It makes me really proud that we were able to find a 4-way partnership and find a way to move forward on this. I'm proud of us, as well as the city of Derby and Rockford Township, and especially Westar. They've invested $1 million in this project to make this happen. So this is a very complex problem. Those properties, in my opinion, before we got involved a year ago, had a issue that would have made it very hard to market them to someone because the road was so bad. And now, my opinion is this is premium property because of the investment by Sedgwick County and the city of Derby. So, again, I am supportive of this because their location is basically, in my opinion, as close to the city as you'd want to be. This is an ideal place. I'd love to live there if I could. And inside the city of Derby, I'd be fine with that as well. But I think I've said plenty, but thank you for the dialogue, and I hope that makes sense as to why I'm supportive of this today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions from the commission. I don't know if the manager of City of Derby wants to make any more comments. All right, commissioners, I think we need a motion then, unless there are specific instructions for Justin, that motion to receive and file.
Mr. Chairman, I would make the motion to receive and file.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Chairman Unruh.
Aye. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you,
Next
Commissioners.
item, please.
Item F, resolution to request the federal government to enact legislation to lift restrictions regarding the use and transfer of Lake Afton Park property.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Justin Wagoner, Assistant County Counselor. As has been discussed before, I think on a few occasions, Lake Afton Park, which includes the Judge Riddell Boys Ranch, or the former Judge Riddell Boys Ranch, is subject to restrictions on the use and transfer of that property that are contained within Section 6F of the Land and Water Conservation Fund Act. More specifically, the relevant portion of that act, I'll call it the LWCF Act, provides that no property acquired or developed with assistance under this section shall, without approval of the Secretary, be converted to other than public outdoor recreation uses. And the Secretary they're referring to there is the Secretary of the U.S. Department of the Interior. What I didn't state above is, why is Lake Afton Park subject to those restrictions? Well, the answer is because in 1966, Sedgwick County accepted approximately $7,000 in grant funding, which constituted about 1/2 of the construction cost of a comfort station. If you look on your screen, a picture of that comfort station as it appears now, it's had some updates and modifications over the last 51 years. But that's the comfort station we're referring to here. The resolution that's in front of you today would request that the federal government lift the use and transfer restrictions specific to Lake Afton Park through any means that are appropriate, which would include but not be limited to any legislative action. Commissioner Ranzau has requested this resolution be brought in front of you. And really the two reasons for requesting this legislative change or any other potential action are pretty straightforward. First, it really involves the disproportionality of a $7,000 grant agreement tying up the use and transfer of the entirety of Lake Afton Park. And then secondly, the fact the restriction is into perpetuity as opposed to being based on a reasonable period of time. And I'll get into each of those in a little bit more detail. With regard to disproportionality, it's important to keep in mind the time frame during which some of this activity occurred. The majority of land that comprises Lake Afton Park was purchased during the 1930s and 40s. Subsequent to that purchase, resources were used to construct the lake and dam, several buildings in Lake Afton Park, including the Judge Riddell Boys Ranch, which was noted as an initial construction cost of more than $600,000 in, I think, 1950s money, and also the establishment of roads and several other park amenities. While additional buildings and amenities have been added since 1966, Lake Afton Park was already a fully functioning, multi-use public park prior to 1966 and the acceptance of that grant. The resolution notes that to impose the LWCF Act restrictions for half the construction cost of a single, again in the picture, comfort station upon the entirety of Lake Afton Park, which is roughly 800 acres in size, would be disproportionate. And then I mentioned perpetuity. It's been over 50 years since the county received that grant funding. Based on the documents available from the state of Kansas and from the Sedgwick County clerk, it's not abundantly clear, actually I would say it's not clear at all, that the county commissioners at that time in 1966 understood that the $7,000 grant would subject all of Lake Afton Park to use and transfer restrictions we've discussed today. The resolution notes that what I have discussed constitutes unique circumstances that would justify a legislative change. The recommended actions to approve the resolution, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
All right, thank you. That was a clear review of the history and how we got here, and a clear review of the absurdity of this restriction. Commissioner Ranzau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Justin, for all your work on this, and thank you for bringing the picture so we can see.
You're welcome.
You know what's causing all this hassle. It's certainly a nice facility, but I don't think it was worth basically relinquishing control over 800 acres. And so if we pass this resolution, I think we have another one coming after this with respect to a similar situation here in the county. Then this will go up, and hopefully Congressman Estes can use that to help get some legislation passed to free us from all of these encumbrances that we have. While we don't expect to do anything with Lake Afton, being released from this encumbrance would just guarantee that we can do whatever we want with that park and make changes and whatever, and not have to go through this again or any other land that has a similar encumbrance. So I think you made a good case, very logical, sound case that I think should fly through the United States Congress. That means it'll probably get hung up for years, but nevertheless, $7,000 for 50 years, I think they got their money's worth. And so I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution, and that's it.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for this item. Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to second that, but that's okay. This is a great resolution. Again, I think that to give up control forever is not good policy. At the time, I'm sure this made sense to the commissioners, but today we are making a decision to essentially demolish a multi-million-dollar facility that might be used for good. The compelling reason for that is because of this encumbrance. It was created 51 years ago. I think that to use a facility like that for taxpayer good and solve problems in the community would be ideal, but that's not really an option for us today because of this encumbrance. And so I am very supportive of this. Again, if I understand correctly, this doesn't actually change anything, but it does advocate for legislation and legislative changes at the national level that give us some relief to this type of a forever encumbrance. And so I'm very supportive of this and appreciate the opportunity to vote on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comment? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the vote, please.
Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Chairman Unruh.
Aye. And next item, please.
Item G, resolution to request the removal of federal restrictions on the usage and transfer of Northeast Sedgwick County Park.
Hello, Commissioners. Justin Wagner, Assistant County Counselor. Just like the Lake Afton Park, the Northeast Sedgwick County Park, which is approximately 650 acres in size, and is located in the approximate area of 77th Street North and 127th Street East, 127th Street East, is subject to restrictions on the use and transfer of the land that are contained with Section 6F of the LWCF Act. Commissioner Dennis asked that we have a resolution in front of you today that would request the federal government to lift the use and transfer restrictions on the Northeast Sedgwick County Park through any means that are appropriate, again, including but not limited to legislative action. If you refer to the map that's in front of you here, and this is zoomed out a bit, but you'll notice towards the top right there's a red dot there. That's approximately where the Northeast Sedgwick County Park is located. If you see the lighter blue and brown colored shading, those are the urban growth areas for 2035 for all the cities within Sedgwick County. So the two relevant cities that are even, if you look, they're roughly a mile and a half. There are growth areas for 20 years from now from where this park is located. It shows how remotely located it is, perhaps, because the darker shading for each of those cities actually show where their current city limits are, which I think are in the neighborhood of 3 miles at the closest to this location. The same portion of the LWCF Act that I had recited earlier that contains the restrictions on use and transfer of the park also include indications about how designations that tie up or essentially restrict the use of the property can be transferred, or they use the word converted, from one property to another, which is relevant here because that's ultimately how Northeast Sedgwick County Park became subject to the LWCF Act restrictions. The portion of the LWCF Act that notes that the Secretary shall approve a conversion only if he finds it to be in accord with the then existing comprehensive statewide outdoor recreation plan, and upon such conditions as he deems necessary to assure the substitution of other recreation properties of at least fair market value and of reasonably equivalent usefulness and location. The Northeast Sedgwick County Park was established in 2011. It comprises a portion of land that was received from the city of Wichita as part of the jail fee settlement. And so I mentioned conversions, and I'll go through, and actually let me move here too. I believe there's a second map that may be able to show the park zoomed in a bit, but in 1992, well, let me just kind of back up. Sedgwick County Park, around 21st Street and Ridge, or in that neighborhood, is again subject to those same LWCF Act restrictions. In 1992, the county decided that a good location to build the Sedgwick County Extension Center would be at 21st and Ridge on that property. The building of that building was going to take about 13.5 acres of that land out from under, essentially being able to use for public purposes as a park and recreation. And so as a result, they converted those 13.5 acres at 21st and Ridge to what was then called the Kansas Coliseum Camper Park, which is an already existing camper park in the area between 77th Street and 85th Street North, adjacent to the Kansas Coliseum. And they essentially took those 13.5 acres and subjected 43.4 acres to those restrictions. And then subsequent to that, as the county wanted to sell the Kansas Coliseum in 2011, they wanted to, in order to sell this property, they would have to remove those same LWCF Act restrictions. And so they once again converted their park designation from those. It was altogether the 43 acres I already described, plus there were 50 acres there before. So they took those 93 acres and converted them to the roughly 650 acres that comprise Northeast Sedgwick County Park. I guess the best way to put it in speaking with staff is that usage of the Northeast Sedgwick County Park has been minimal, significantly lags behind all of our other parks. And those parks are the Sedgwick County Zoo, Sedgwick County Park, and Lake Afton Park. Even if the county were to invest increased resources into the park, its location makes it unlikely that the park would become a significant recreational destination for Sedgwick County residents anytime within the next couple of decades. And I pointed out before, again, the map that's in front of you here shows how remotely located it is. I believe it's 2 or 3 miles north of 254 highway. And so it contains primarily unimproved agricultural land. Before the county received the property, it was leased out to various farmers. The city of Wichita had leases for it, and it was proposed at that point, I think, to be a dump facility, or the word escapes me at this point, but essentially
municipal solid waste landfill.
That's correct, Chairman. Thank you. The resolution that's in front of you notes the public interest and public welfare. Well, actually, before I say that, I think based upon the property's location, some suitable uses for it that might be potentially better uses than as a park would be for agricultural purposes, potentially residential or commercial purposes, but it's not ideally located for a park use. The resolution says the public interest and public welfare would best be served by having the LWCF Act restrictions lifted so that the land could be sold and the proceeds could be used for other purposes that would benefit Sedgwick County residents. And some of those purposes include, again, funding our parks. While the LWCF Act does not require that conversions be based on acre for acre, on an acre for acre basis, it is worth noting that the acreage here has gone from 14 acres to 43 acres to approximately 1/2 of the 650 acres. So there's been a significant uptick each time the amount of acreage that's been encumbered. The recommended action on this matter is to approve the resolution. I would note that there's the map that I was referring to in the green shading shows the entirety of the Northeast Sedgwick County Park. I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, and we do have a comment from Commissioner Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Justin said, I was the one that requested this. When we first started learning about the encumbrances on Lake Afton, I asked our legal department, what other properties do we own that are also encumbered? And although that process is still ongoing, we haven't got a complete list of everything that's encumbered. We did discover this piece of property that's encumbered. And again, just as egregious as Lake Afton, where we took $7,000 50 years ago and encumbered an entire park, what's happened here is we've taken 14 acres, and now we've got about 650 acres that are encumbered. So it's just as a significant overreach as Lake Afton is. There may be others. We don't know yet until we see what else that we have that's encumbered. But this is just as significant as Lake Afton. We have no plans for what to do anything with this piece of property. I want to make sure everybody is put at ease right now that there are no plans. But we need this encumbrance removed. And if we're going to send a request up to Representative Estes to see if we can get Lake Afton, we don't need to keep going up there time and time again and asking for relief. We need to submit the two requests that we know that are very egregious and see if we can get action on both of them at the same time. So therefore, that's why I ask for us to take a look at this, and so I'd make a motion that we adopt the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, and a comment from Commissioner Ranzau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks again for all the work on this, and I appreciate Commissioner Dennis starting this. Two of us were here when we had to put this encumbrance on there. We didn't like doing it, but it was one of those things we were just kind of forced to do. And regardless, like Commissioner Dennis said, even if we decide to keep it the way it is, it's nice to have that encumbrance off, because if we want to put something on it that's not relating to recreation, we go back to the extension office. Just because we put the extension office where it did, then that shifted and created this whole chain of events. And so I think this would be worthwhile. We need to make sure we get a history together of all this stuff so that we send it up to people and DC will understand everything. And I do think it's important that we have an accurate and exhaustive list of all the encumbrances, so that we don't want to miss anything or misstate anything, and if we are lucky enough to get a bill passed and then have to come back and say, oops, there's an error or something. I want to make sure that we have, our I's dotted and T's crossed. And my understanding is, we may need to, check with the state, because some of this paperwork is very old and the records aren't maybe quite as consistent or as good as what we'd like to have. But I appreciate all the work staff's gone on this, and I'm very supportive. So,
thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, I know that we've had quite a bit of effort in trying to bring this to a conclusion, and I would want the citizens proximate to that area in northeast Sedgwick County and District 1 to know that we do not have plans for development or of commercial development or development of a park or anything else at this time. This is just a rational exercise, we think, to go ahead and get these restrictions lifted so that we have the opportunity to either develop it or sell it back for ag use or whatever happens. But at this point, we don't even have current plans to develop it as a park. So it just seems reasonable that we lift these restrictions so that we can then think about what might be possible. So are there other comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Chairman Unruh.
Aye. And Justin, I think you're still up. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item H, intergovernmental service agreement with Rockford Township to provide road maintenance services.
Hello, Commissioners. Justin Wagner, Assistant County Counselor. I know you've already talked some and heard some about the road problems. And this is with regard to unpaved roads within Rockford Township. I just wanted to clarify that these are in the unincorporated area, but townships are separate and distinct taxing subdivisions, so they're legally the ones who are responsible for these roads at this point. Commissioner Howell had asked for, has really been, I think, more or less searching for some solutions on this, and then the agreement that's in front of you today, the Intergovernmental Services Agreement, is really, I think, more or less a result of some of those efforts. You will see a map that's in front of you here on the screen. The map shows Rockford Township, and you'll note at the bottom right corner there's a cutout of Sedgwick County. It shows it's the very southeastern corner of the county, and to the more or less to the southeast, east and southeast of the city of Derby. The KSA 68572 permits counties and townships to reach agreements for construction, reconstruction, and/or maintenance of any township roads or streets. What's in front of you today is an intergovernmental services agreement for road maintenance services. The agreement is essentially a framework for how potential future agreements for road maintenance projects between Sedgwick County and Rockford Township could work. It does not commit the county to spend any money at this point in time, but again, as I noted, it's more or less a framework. The township has approved this agreement during their August meeting, but I still am awaiting a copy of that in the mail. Their township trustee indicated it is in the mail. If the agreement were to be approved by you today, what it more or less lays out is a procedure, and you know, I think it would almost be a 4-part procedure for any potential future road projects. It would set out the township would request a quote from the county where they would identify a road and any services they may want to have provided to improve that road or better maintain it. Then county public works staff would complete a quote showing the cost of that and provide that essentially back to the township 20 days later, the idea being to get it to them before their next monthly meeting, as most townships meet once per month. The third step would be the township would consider, you know, after receiving the cost of the quote, would consider whether or not they would approve would wish to enter into agreement with the county, and if so, they would have a draft agreement in front of them to consider that. They would have to have the money on hand, you know, to pay the invoice when it could become due from the county. So that would be one of the requirements. You probably heard Dana Milby mention that they can't borrow from the county, and there's some legal restrictions that would not allow the township to just borrow from the county. If they would have to have actually the money on hand. There's some cash basis restrictions on that, but they'd have to have the money on hand to where whenever the invoice would become due, they could pay it at that time. And then the fourth step out of those would be a vote for the Board of County Commissioners to consider that individual project agreement. The agreement would note that the county would complete the work, and upon completion of the work, they'd send an invoice to the township, and they'd have 90 days to pay. The recommended action on this item is to take action that you as a board deem appropriate, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
All right, thank you, Justin. Commissioners, are there comment? Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've already talked about this quite a lot already. I don't want to repeat myself, but I do want to remind us exactly why this is important, and so I'd like to just touch a couple of those items very briefly. And again, the roads are somewhat passable if you've got, you know, 4-wheel drive and it hasn't been raining lately. So all the roads are not a problem all the time, but when it does rain, and we know it's going to rain, there are significant problems on many of these roads, and sometimes the results of that are there's car damage, there's people who are going off the road, there's people can't get to work, the school buses will not run to pick up children, they will not deliver the mail, or they will not pick up trash, and not deliver packages. Emergency service personnel cannot necessarily reach some of the homes, and so this is in my opinion, a dire situation, an emergent situation that does require some significant aggressive solution. To the extent that they cannot borrow money, trying to find a way to make the money go as far as possible and give them the expertise and the skill set needed to solve the infrastructure problems that are causing these roads to be so bad is what this is all about. As one of the previous speakers said, this does not bind the township or the county commission to go forward. This simply sets up the framework for we can have a conversation about a project that is defined by the township board. It will be estimated by Public Works, and if it's agreeable to the township and to the BOCC, then we can go forward. So that's at least 4 triggers that have to happen before any one project would be accomplished or funded through the township revenues. I would agree with one of the previous speakers. These are our constituents as well. They're reaching out to us, not because it's our responsibility, but I think because they're asking for us to do whatever we possibly can. And I've looked at many statutes, so I'm not going to go through those, but there's a number of statutes in the Kansas laws that allow a number of things to happen. Going through those, trying to find the best options. We're down to this one as being really the final and best option. There really is not any other great option, in my opinion. This, as was mentioned earlier, was anticipated by the legislature as something that might need to happen once in a while. This is not something I think that is precedent-setting necessarily, but if there was another township that was in the same situation, I would hope that we would be willing to step up and help them as well. Again, I use the word help. We're not talking about funding their solutions, but we're talking about stepping in with expertise and the equipment and experience to solve these problems. And one of the estimates we got earlier, which I think is important, if I can find it here, we had the county did an estimate on what it would cost to solve some of these problems. Let me just read that for you real quickly. County Public Works looked at this. For us to bring the entire township up to county standards would cost the county, or someone, I should actually say, would cost the township just under $3 million, $2.91 million to solve the problems across the entire township. That's an average of $69,300 per mile. If the same work was done by outside contractors, the cost would be $194,920 per mile for the same work, for a total of just a little over $8 million, $8.186 million. So you can see this is a significant issue. It's not going to be an easy one to solve. Again, I mentioned a minute ago they've already increased their mill levy. They're one of the highest townships in the county right now, with 16.4 mills for 2018. And even at that, it generates $328,000 in total revenue. I would estimate about half that would be needed just to maintain existing roads. And it includes grading and adding material to those roads as needed. The rest of that money would be available for reconstruction, which is not a lot of money. We're talking probably less than $200,000, maybe about $150,000 available for reconstruction, even at 16.4 mills. Rockford Township does not have a lot of assessed valuation, which is part of the problem. It doesn't have a lot of population, which means mill levy does not generate a lot of dollars, which is kind of why I think we're here today. So anyway, I wanted to explain that. Let me talk about their options. If this is not passed and the township electors continue to be frustrated with the situation, they do have a nuclear option available to them. I don't know when it would happen, but at some point the township board would eventually have to go through an election cycle. If they choose to stay on through their existing terms at some point, I have no doubt that the township board will be possibly be different personalities. There are many people in the township right now who are interested in potentially taking over that, but only for a purpose. And the purpose would be not to replace these folks trying to accomplish the work, but primarily to exercise the KSA 80-120, which is a statute that allows for the dissolution of the township board and transfers those powers and duties to the BOCC. That is a real option. I don't personally want that to happen. Again, if we were to have this handed to us, we do have bonding authority. I don't know what we would do at that time. We have a lot of decisions to make, but knowing that those roads are becoming our responsibility to some extent, I think we'd probably want to fix those things and probably potentially have to put up about that $3 million to fix the problems around that township. We would be able to levy a tax, but I would question how much that tax would be. They've already got their taxes up to 16.4. I don't anticipate us raising their taxes by hundreds of mills to aggressively pay for that. So I think they would actually, my opinion was we'd have to spend money on their behalf we wouldn't get paid back for a number of years. And people say, well, you can just appoint a new board. Well, the reality is I've already appointed 3 people since I've been a commissioner in the less than 3 years I've been here. The reality is it's hard to find somebody that wants to serve. When you've got a significant amount of problems and a lot of angry people, it's hard to find someone to step up and take that role seriously and be willing to take all that criticism. So I appreciate those that have stepped up, but the reality is it's a thankless job for the most part. They get paid very little for what they do. And having said that, I think if this board was dissolved, I would have a hard time finding 3 people that would be willing to step in and take those responsibilities back and return things back to kind of a normal situation that we have today. So I think the county BOCC would potentially end up with this, and we would have a lot of responsibilities and very little ability to get the money out of the township quickly to pay for those things as we go. We'd have to either be willing to live with dangerous situations and allow these situations to continue, or we'd have to aggressively fix those things and try to get the money out of the township down the road, and that would be a number of years for that to happen. So again, I see that this is the best option for us today is to, with this agreement, estimate projects that are important to the township and let Public Works estimate those. It doesn't obligate them, it doesn't obligate us. And to the extent that we can do that work, again, I know Public Works is very busy, but we do have a winter season coming up, and to the extent that they might be able to provide some assistance in that time, I think that if we can do it, we ought to do that if it's agreeable to both the township and to the BOCC. Furthermore, you didn't mention this, Mr. Counselor, but I would make a point that this is limited to 1 year. and either party can terminate this with 30 days notice. And so if things don't go well, we don't like how this is going, we can terminate this, or it will automatically expire. There's a sunset built into the agreement of 1 year. I don't know what else to say other than I think this is important for us to move forward, and I would urge my colleagues to support this. It doesn't bind us. It does potentially provide some help to some group of to a group of folks that are desperately needing that help. So, with that, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we would adopt the resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I have some questions.
All right. Before there is a second, we'll leave the motion on the table for the moment without a second. And Commissioner Ranzau?
A couple questions here. We're talking about doing maintenance. Does this include work on ditches?
I believe maintenance work, and David Spears would probably be able to better address some of that, but I think the idea would be re-rocking these roads. Again, they're unpaved roads, so re-rocking the roads. I believe it could possibly probably include some clean out of ditches. There may be a question as to if culvert work would be considered maintenance, but I would defer more to David Spears on that in terms of the limits.
It specifically states culverts in here. Materials needed for any culverts.
And that would probably be for
or other
maintenance.
infrastructure. I just want to have I would like to have a definitive answer, because I went out there and I've toured this area, and putting rock on the roads is nice, because there's a few of those roads that actually need some ditch work.
Yeah, and I think, and David will correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but if it was an existing culvert and you're replacing or doing some work on that, that probably would be considered maintenance, but perhaps I'm wrong on that, so I would defer to him.
Commissioner Ranzau, David Spears, Assistant County Manager for Public Works. Yes, it includes everything. I mean, to blade the road, you have to have good drainage, so we'd have to redo the ditches, we'd have to replace culverts. Probably most of the culverts are rusted, and you would have to replace those. Another thing, I've had a person go through every single road in the township. We then had an engineer come up with a cost estimate for the time and effort, and that's where Commissioner Howell got his numbers. The other thing is, if there's narrow right-of-way, there's the possibility that you don't have enough room to put in a proper ditch. That's why you heard the gentleman this morning talking about a straight drop-off, but so you need room possibly, and we have not looked at that. So there could be the possibility of purchasing some right-of-way to do that. But yeah, when we say maintenance, so to answer your question, it includes blading the road, fixing any soft spots with rock, putting gravel on the road, cleaning the ditches, trimming trees. That's another thing, that the trees overhanging the road. There's a lot of that down there.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. And this statute that we're talking about here, is this a general statute that allows for counties and townships to enter in agreements, or is it something that specifically contemplates this sort of?
It is a statute specific to counties and townships reaching intergovernmental services agreements for road construction and maintenance.
So it specifically contemplates roads and maintenance and things like that, and construction. Correct. If you want to.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I have toured some of those areas. I'm not sure that we need to repair every single thing in 42 acres of roads, but if we can help them on some of the more major ones, I think that if the statute contemplates that specifically, says this is something you can do, and so I think in the end I'll be supportive, so I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would just speak to the current discussion. The way I read this, that the request for quote could contain additional requested maintenance, and that is pretty nonspecific. And it also says a request for other infrastructure, which I see as nonspecific. So I think entering into this, we have to go in with our eyes open should we do this, knowing that the township could bring us multiple requests for quote for multiple maintenance and infrastructure requirements that we would be compelled to respond to within 20 days, according to this agreement. One of my concerns is why does this take for an agreement that has been for an agreement that's been said neither one of us has to comply and we can quit in 30 days, and yet we're going to sign an intergovernmental agreement. It seems like this agreement is elevated to too high of a level. If we can both quit, we don't have, except the county has to respond according to this. Would a memorandum of understanding be a better vehicle to accomplish this, rather than what appears to me to be about a contract? We're obligated to respond to a broad range of requests within 20 days, which I can see eating up a lot of Public Works time just to come up with the estimates for repair. I mean, it's going to require engineering and labor negotiations and all those sort of things, or land negotiations. So I guess my question is my interpretation correct that we're broadly exposed, number one, and number two, would an MOU be a better vehicle?
And I might answer the second question first. I think you could, on something like this, you probably could have an MOU, because this isn't contractually binding us to actually go and do a project. So I think there would be a possibility to have it phrased as an MOU. The first question that you asked, remind me what that was again.
Well, it's just that I think we're exposed to the entire area of maintenance, and that we must respond to, the township's not restricted on how many they might ask for.
That's correct.
And we have to respond in 20 days, and I think we do have an exposure there that we may not be willing to take under the current language.
And I think some of the thought behind that was a good share of this is going to be re-rocking of roads and things like that.
I know,
but to the extent it would be something more complicated, or if the board sees fit to amend that time frame, we certainly could. I think the reason it was intended, that it was drafted with a 20-day time frame, was to recognition of the fact that townships generally meet once per month, and to give a reasonably prompt response back. But that 20-day time frame could be amended, and we could send, and then if it was to be approved, we could modify that and send that to the township. Or you could, again, you asked about the MOU. I don't think there's any reason this couldn't be an MOU necessarily. The actual agreements themselves that you'd reach, the project agreements, would have to be done pursuant to the same statute that this is proposed to be done.
I understand that. And I was looking there. There are not township officials here, are there? I'll leave it stand at that. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I am supportive of the county to do something, but I do worry about precedent that this creates, and so I was just wondering if, and this might be a question for Commissioner Howell or maybe David Spears, but is there any other option on the table? Otherwise, I'll be supporting this if there is no other option on the table. So, David Spears or Commissioner Howell.
I'd be glad to speak to that when I have.
All right, Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So let me go through the questions I've heard so far. The township officials all have full-time jobs, and they are aware of this meeting. I have been in contact with them. They did speak at the township meeting, which is an evening meeting. It meets on Tuesday nights at 7:30 p.m. I've actually attended the last 6 township meetings. We have great discussion. I was able to hear from them directly. I also talk to them on the phone frequently about township issues and problems and solutions and challenges. And so I've been in close contact with them, and I appreciate their service, but to expect them to take time off work to attend this meeting when really this is, I think, adequately presented by myself as well as council, and knowing that they supported this at their last meeting, I think is sufficient. In terms of other options, I think we're out of options. The other options are petition-led. There are other options that requires binding votes of the people for certain levels of tax. I looked at some of that as being part of the solution. Unfortunately, trying to package that together in a way that made sense, it doesn't seem to help the problem in any way. They've got the ability to pass a budget every year, and they can set the mill levy to whatever they like. There's no limit, as far as I know, and so those statutes don't seem to help anything. They've got to do a pay-as-you-go situation. to the extent of precedent. Again, as I said before, if any other township found themselves in the same situation, to the extent it's not costing other taxpayers money, to the extent we've got staff, equipment, and time to address some of these concerns, I would hope we would be willing to step up with an intergovernmental agreement on a limited basis to resolve some of those emergency, dire situations as a highly skilled, expert staff that knows what they're doing, has tremendous experience, a very limited basis, being able to step in and help them and make them pay for it, I think is a reasonable thing to do. If that happens somewhere else, I'd hope we do the same. We would do the same thing for any township that has that situation. So, yeah, maybe it is precedent setting. However, I think that there is. Someone mentioned this is a moral issue. I kind of think that it is. I think that this is one of those things when you can help somebody and it doesn't cost you anything. Why would you not do it? So, if there's another township that finds themselves in that situation and they want to appeal to the BOCC for that similar assistance, I would hope we would consider the fact that if we can help them, we have the time and ability to do that. I would hope we would do that. I would also say that the intention is not to do general maintenance. The intention is to do reconstruction. They can do road grading. Now, they're not. Arguably, we're going to do road grader school in Rockford Township on a couple of miles here later this month, and I'm grateful to Public Works for helping that school come to Sedgwick County, and we picked Rockford Township because they've got some great roads that need to have some help, and so we're going to do a class out there over a period of 3 days, and hopefully fix a couple of miles of road as a training opportunity, and that's going to be great. So right now, the grader operator is trying to learn how to do this, and some townships have operators that have done this for 20 and 30 years. They're very, very good. The operator in Rockford Township is young, and he's kind of new to it, and he's kind of learning his skill set. He's not really got it all done yet. But we're asking him to learn how to maintain a road, which is basically grading and making sure there's a small crown on the road, and putting the right aggregate on the road and spreading that out in a proper way. And then just maintain the ditches and culverts as needed. And maybe a couple here and a couple there. They have not replaced any culverts as far as I can tell, for about 30 years. Now, they've replaced a few this last year because the township has made choices to do that. Some of these culverts have rusted away or they've collapsed. The roads have narrowed in because the ends of the culverts are missing. And you drive down the road, there's actually a missing part of the road that your wheels could go off into and take the front end of your car off. And so there's some really dangerous situations on some of these roads because the culverts have not been maintained. I talked to the previous operator, said he'd been there for a long time. How many culverts did you replace all the time you were there? He said 0. Why is that? He said because they didn't have the money. Well, they didn't pass the budget that generated the dollars. It was a choice that they made. But we're in a situation now where those culverts need to be replaced. They're not safe. And the drainage is a problem because they're either collapsed or they've rusted away. And they're not sized properly. And so drainage is the number one thing. I think that reconstructing roads is exactly what we're talking about. We have a skill set that they don't have. I don't expect a 19 or 20-year-old young man that's learning how to grade a road to know how to reconstruct a road. We have experts in our Public Works that can do that probably in their sleep. But we're asking an awful lot from someone who's getting paid $13 an hour, a part-time, to reconstruct a road that's causing these types of problems. So, they don't have the dollars to substantially do what needs to be done there. Public Works has already looked at all these roads. They spent a long time, months, looking at these roads and developing a long list of what they felt needed to be done. If they deliver us a project, it can include, they define the scope of project. They'll say, we need you to reconstruct a road, including the ditches or the width of the road. They may talk about the culverts. They may talk about drainage issues. They don't have to do everything. They could define the scope of work to include trimming trees or not. They're in control. They get to define the scope of work and our responsibility. They've already looked at all these roads. They simply deliver to them within 20 days an estimate what we think that's going to cost. And it does not require us to do 42 miles. It does not require us to do everything on every road. It's going to be defined by the township, potentially. In my opinion, is knowing these folks, I will be surprised if they send us very much work and possibly no work at all. This is creating a framework. We could do an MOU, but we're already here. I have spent months to get to this point. It's already been adopted by the township. I think it's time for us to move forward. doesn't cause us any problems. It helps us move forward. If we were to start over with an MOU, we have to have another delay of at least another month or two, and I don't see how that's better than what we have in front of us today. This allows a framework for us to move forward. It doesn't bind anybody. It creates a solution where we can step in if we can and if we want to and if they want to. And so I think we need to move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. We could move forward on agreement without this agreement. They could ask us to do something, and then we could consider a contract for a specific thing. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Commissioners, one thing I had asked David to do, regardless of really what passes today, for us, I think it's important, since we have a lot of the township experts in terms of road grading coming down there for the course. I asked David yesterday to look for that night. It's a two-day course. The night of the first day is to bring the township together, township graders together, and trustees to ask them about the potential for doing some collaboration down there in Rockford Township. Recently, one of the neighboring townships, Salem Township, they did offer Rockford Township some assistance, and it's my understanding that the trustee there is thinking about it. But this would give them an opportunity to come together as a body to discuss what their needs are and see if there's some more offer for some support, especially from Riverside, Salem, and probably Gypsum townships, which are the three neighboring townships around Rockford. But if they're offering support, they're even at one point offering an exchange that the rookie operator would come over to their township and the experienced one go into Rockford Township to offer them some skill and expertise to get some things done. So there are some options to work at kind of the local level, local township level, and that may be an option down the road, actually in 2 weeks, that may bear some fruit. So there are other options that we have discussed here.
Thank you for those comments. 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, and David has put a lot of teeth through this and might be able to explain it a little bit better. But he has a little primer he wrote for the agenda that would be able to describe what we're asking for and what the requirement would be and how to bring them together. So.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. Commissioner Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I do hope we can find a solution. I'm just not sure that the solution that's presented to us today is the best solution. I believe it does set a precedence. Rockford Township is one of 28 townships in Sedgwick County. As a matter of fact, 12 of those 28 are in my district alone. As far as this proposal that's before us, it was just added to the agenda on Monday. Although I know that Commissioner Howell has been working on this for some time, he really hasn't been bringing along the other commissioners very well to make sure that we're familiar with what the problem is. About a week ago, Commissioner Ranzau and I did go out and tour the area, so we are familiar with what's going on. But as far as this agreement, we hadn't really seen it until it showed up on our agenda on Monday. Then yesterday, the manager and our attorney came in and briefed Commissioner O'Donnell and I, and during that time, he did suggest that the townships have the possibility of coming together to help each other, to cooperate, and to share their expertise. So this is an option that I think is workable. Another thing, just this morning was the first time I ever saw any of their financials. So I wasn't even sure where they're at financially on being able to even repay us if there is any kind of requirements coming along. So we are concerned about the citizens down there. I'm not willing to just vote no on this and not say that there's some kind of an option. But I think we need to give the manager time to see if we can work with the the other townships that are around there so that they can cooperate and provide expertise in order to be able to solve this for the citizens down there. So therefore, I'd like to make a substitute motion that we defer this until such time that the manager can come back and see if there is an alternate solution. And I don't make this motion with the intent of kicking the can down the road forever. The manager's already promised that he would get together with the other townships and see if we can to come up with some type of solution that is workable. So that's my motion.
I will second the substitute motion. Is there discussion on that? Well, Commissioner Ramsden would like to speak.
Yeah, I have some questions. Having the townships work together, I think, is a good idea, and I think it could help with things like road grading. But when it comes to cleaning out those ditches and getting right-of-way, is that something that the other townships are going to be able to help take care of for them?
David Spears again. They can clean ditches out. The right-of-way generally would have to come through the county commission to get approved, and it would, probably more than likely take money to do that. That's one thing that's a little sticky in the whole situation.
I guess I kind of see it. I'm not sure why we need to say either or, why it can't be both approaches simultaneously, to be honest with you. To the extent that because like I say, I don't really want county to take care of all 42 miles, but if the townships can help and get a large majority of those up together and get going, but I think there's going to be a certain amount of roads, maybe 3, 5, 6, I don't know. There's some areas just from when I drove out there that's going to need some ditch work and some more extensive stuff that I think they may need more. So I just don't see it as an either or situation. I think having both at the same time as possibilities, and certainly having the townships work together is something that happened, I would think, a lot sooner, and I would encourage trying to make that happen. This other stuff, projects would be further down the road, but they might be, more intensive type of maintenance than as opposed to what some of the townships I think could do. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Comment from Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the extent that if we were to pass this agreement today, Salem Township, if they wanted to step in and help, that could still happen. It doesn't preclude them from helping. The framework, to the extent that we don't have a solution that comes forward from Salem Township, the framework that this creates would be in place and ready to go. We don't have to come back and meet again and have another long discussion and delay the solution that might need to come forward. To the extent that this is a new issue, I've been talking about Rockford Township a long time. I think my colleagues are aware of Rockford. In fact, the fact that you toured Rockford Township tells me that you're aware of the controversy that's been going on. None of us have been in the dark. This is not like an item I just sprung on you the last minute and you didn't have time to review it. I'd say this agreement is very simple. 3 pages long. It's very, very short, easy to understand. It's not complicated. It doesn't bind us. I don't want to stall. I don't want to wait to pass this. To the extent that I didn't come and lobby my colleagues on this, we are restricted by Kansas Open Meetings Act not to have interactive discussion on items that come before the Commission. I take that very seriously. I expect my staff to present these issues to my colleagues. And that's exactly why I didn't come to your office and tell you all about this. And so I would, the fact this came up Monday was because this is our last meeting. We don't have a meeting next week. We have a meeting, I guess, maybe the week after that. But it's going to be one of these things where the meeting after that, I think, is past the Rockford Township's next meeting. And I was hoping that we'd be able to again move forward. If we delay this another to our next meeting, which is 2 weeks from now, it's past Rockford Township's next meeting, which I think is, again, an unnecessary delay. So for us to move forward, there's no reason to wait. And I just, again, Commissioner Dennis, you said you have 12 townships in your district, and again, we're county commissioners. We represent all 26 townships to some degree. I have 5 townships, 3 of them partially in my district, and 2 of them wholly in my district. I feel very strongly about trying to help them if I possibly can in a way that doesn't hurt other taxpayers. if any of the 12 townships in your district were in the same situation, I, as a District 5 commissioner, would be glad to help people in other parts of Sedgwick County. You said it's precedent setting. I agree. I've already said that. This is precedent setting. If there's any township that's in dire situation and has emergency issues like this, that's been developing a deferred maintenance stack of work that's going to take years to repair, and it's taken decades to get to this point. Okay, and the situation's happening elsewhere. I would think that the same agreement and the same type of assistance on a limited basis, to the extent that we can do it, if we have time and expertise and the equipment and the people to step in my opinion, I would love to help them when it doesn't cost other taxpayers money, and we can potentially step in and help. So yes, it's precedent setting in that regard, but it's not going to open us up to taking over all the townships for everything all the time. That is not what this is about. We have a future vote. If it comes to us, again, 3 steps have to happen before it comes to us again. And we have that chance. We have the chance at that time to say yes or no. And if we find out we don't have time to do this, or whatever reason might come up for us to not want to do it, we have the option of voting no at that time. So this does not put us in this situation. So I would urge us to adopt the agreement today, and to delay that, in my opinion, is not being sensitive to what's going on in Rockford Township. So I would urge a no vote on the substitute motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Thank you. If we did delay this in accordance with the motion from Commissioner Dennis, what sort of time frame are you thinking the first meeting we have in October, or when would we circle back around?
Well, I thought in my motion I was talking about the manager was going to get with the townships as soon as possible, and as soon as they get back with a recommendation, that's when I hope we could bring it back before the commission.
Yeah, because I definitely do want to find some resolution to this matter. It has been going on a long time. Like Commissioner Howell mentioned, he's brought this up to me, I think, for months. I've been aware of this issue, and as a county commissioner, I do think that we need to find solutions for people that don't even live in our respective districts. But I also am a little concerned about the precedent. So I will support delaying this as long as the manager thinks we can get it for October for the first week, if you think that's achievable.
We'll have an answer certainly by then. We'll start working it now, and then we have the meeting. We'll know by that first week of October.
Okay.
We'll have at least some advice and a potential next step. It may not be a direct solution to this, but at least we're going to know which way we're going and see what kind of cooperative participation we'll get before we start down this agreement.
Certainly.
Okay. Commissioner, is that all?
Yeah, that's all. I have spoken to people that live in the Salem Township, and they have offered support for Rockford. I think that there seems to be some other organic issues down in Rockford outside of the street maintenance. It seems like there might be some other just leadership problems from where I'm sitting. So not from the commissioner, though. So
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question to Commissioner O'Donnell, if he's willing to answer. To the extent that, or maybe the manager can answer this, to the extent that Salem Township might be able to provide a little bit of help to Rockford Township, what's their agreement going to be regarding the finances? Is Rockford Township paying for Salem Township to do this, or how's that going to work out?
From what I understood, they were offering to do it for free.
Okay.
Out of a neighborly, just context that they wanted to help.
For the record, Salem Township is partially in my district as well, and I appreciate those township officials. They do a tremendous job, and they have their own set of challenges, but their roads are in pretty good shape, and they do a good job. Gypsum Township, I think, has the best roads in Sedgwick County, and it's just to the north of Rockford Township, and the greater operator there has provided some expertise trying to help them understand what to do and how to do it. But in terms of taxing jurisdictions, I would be surprised if Salem Township would be willing to take on a financial obligation paid for by Salem Township constituents and extend services for free to Rockford Township. The same reason we don't want to take Sedgwick County taxpayer dollars from other citizens for someone else's taxing jurisdiction responsibility, I don't know why we would support the idea that this is going to be the solution. It's a Johnny-come-lately. They've been dealing with this problem for years. It's gotten really bad over the last year, and here we are, 16, 18 months into a significant effort trying to solve this problem. We're going to delay it another month at least, and now at the very last, the 11th hour, we're going to think that Salem Township is going to spend their money and come in and solve the problem at Rockford Township. It is a significant significant problem. It is not a small thing. To solve these drainage issues in Rockford Township is going to require expertise and equipment. I don't even know if Salem Township has the time or the interest or the money to give that away to someone else when they've been, literally, this problem has been piling up for decades. This is not a small thing. And to think the Salem Township is going to come over there and solve the problem for free to me is not a reasonable solution. Again, all this agreement does today is sets a framework up. We're going to delay it today. It sounds like there's 3 votes. That's fine, I suppose. But I don't anticipate a real solution. And Mr. Thornborough, you're going to come back in a couple of months and tell us exactly how it turned out. I hope you'll come back. I don't know. That's up to the chairman. But I'm just saying, I've been dealing with this as an emergent situation for more than a year, trying to solve a problem. We're about to be able to move forward with framework that doesn't obligate us. And now there's going to be an unnecessary delay once again, and we're going to kick the can over to the next township thinking that they're going to solve these problems. I don't think that's going to work. Maybe they'll be willing to help to some degree. It's not necessarily just about training. It's about the skill set required to put the drainage things in place, and it requires a lot of money and a lot of equipment that I don't think that any of the townships have to solve this thing aggressively. So once again, I urge a no vote on the substitute. I think the original motion needs to be passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner O'Donnell wants to speak here, but I would say that I talked to Clem Dickerson, who's a trustee of Salem Township, and he told me the very thing that the manager said in his comments, that they would switch a couple of men over, they would give them some instant relief while they come up with a plan for some more permanent and more extensive projects. They can send a man with 30 years over there to help grade these roads, to help make them drivable, and they would take the new guy over who could drive a truck for them or whatever they needs to do while they adjust their mill levy and make a plan and present us with a specific request for some kind of assistance rather than an open-ended whatever I want, whenever I want type of a request is the way I see it. Sounds like a pejorative statement, but that's the way I read the document. But so I'm supportive of the substitute motion that if we can get some cooperation, we can buy some time and come up with a specific plan. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, I think this delay is not a precursor that we're not going to do anything. When at least one fellow commissioner says he wants to look into some more options because he hasn't been given as much information, hasn't had the edification some of us have, then I think we should do that. And we're only talking a month. Like you said, you've been working on this for 18 months. So I don't think a month is an outrageous request by one of the commissioners. And so I am supportive of that. And if we do not find a better solution for the residents of Salem Township during that time, I've already said I will support this. I will support this motion and this resolution. But if there is something that we can figure out in the next few weeks, then that might assuage some of the concerns of fellow commissioners, then I'd like to explore that option. So that is why I'm supporting Commissioner Dennis's substitute motion. It is not any type of attack or slight on Commissioner Howell or the residents of Rockford Township.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't see any more requests to speak, so we have a substitute motion with a second that asks for at least a delay until we have time to work with all the townships together to see about help. Is that correct understanding? Okay. Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
No.
Commissioner Howell?
No.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Chairman Unruh?
Aye.
Thank you,
The
Commissioners.
substitute motion passes. Thank you. I would, Commissioner Howell?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a question regarding the memorandum of understanding that you discussed. Would it be possible for us to move forward with that at least allow us the chance to, it was suggested that would be as good as this agreement, and maybe the legal aspect of this agreement is not necessary. So would it be possible for us to move forward with the MOU at least and get that in front of the commissioners and hopefully allow that framework to exist so that we could, again, continue the discussion. Regarding Salem Township, if they step forward and solve these problems, that's wonderful. I hope that happens. And again, I appreciate those township officials. They do a great job in Salem Township as well. But the MOU that was discussed, I think that ought to be a backup plan. If we're not going to do the agreement today, MOU seems like it's more agreeable to the commissioners. Can we at least move forward with that?
I would suggest, is that all, Commissioner?
That's all. I don't know if I need to make a motion for that, but I would like to at least have that conversation.
Perhaps the legal department can come around and talk to us about an MOU and what it means, and give us a briefing on that. We can start that process, perhaps, if you'll come talk to us. Okay. I then take a response. Okay. Without prolonging it and without trying to be argumentative, I would say that I'm thinking about buying a four-wheel drive vehicle myself on my next vehicle. I mean, a lot of people live rural. It's not a hardship. Four-wheel drive vehicles are great cars. So it sounded like people thought that was a hardship to have to buy a four-wheel drive. They're great vehicles. So at any rate, I think we're ready for the next item.
Item I, consideration of a grant in the amount of $939,527 from the Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Shelter Plus Care Housing Program.
Good morning, Commissioners. Marilyn Cook with ComCare. Before you today is a grant application for a housing program that's part of a larger community response to the HUD's Super Notice of Funding Availability process. This is a renewal application for Shelter Plus Care funds that are targeted to three specific homeless populations. One is those experiencing a severe mental illness. Second one would be persons with substance use disorders. The third, persons with HIV/AIDS. The Department of Public Services partners with three referring agencies: ComCare, Miracles Incorporated, and the University of Kansas School of Medicine, Wichita Medical Practice Association. These three organizations are responsible for referrals to the housing vouchers and for providing the care component of the program, through case management services for those receiving those vouchers. As in the past, the United Way takes the lead in submitting this homeless continuum of care program grant in our community. And the application consists of a main Shelter Plus Care grant for $869,606, and that covers rentals on 102 housing units. And then it also covers two different bonus grants, both for around $35,000. The goal of the program is to provide participants with safe and adequate housing while working on their skills to increase income and self-sufficiency. The long-term goal is for participants to successfully address any barriers that they have that contribute to their homelessness and to graduate to some other type of more independent, self-directed housing. How the process works is that the eligible clients find an apartment somewhere in the city of Wichita, and the landlord in that unit has to agree to participate in the program, with the client being the resident. ComCare pays the rent, and the client's expected to pay up to 30% of that rent when that's possible. These clients can stay in this housing as long as they want and as long as they continue to meet the criteria for the program. The money for this grant goes into the rent primarily and the salary of one case manager who checks on the residents to ensure that they are connected to the services they need. So the recommended action would be to approve the application for the grant, and if awarded, approve the acceptance of the grant and authorize the chairman or his designee to sign all necessary documents. Luella Sanders is here from United Way, Maggie Flanders from ComCare if you have any specific questions about the program.
All right, thank you, Marilyn. Commissioners, any comment or question? Seeing none, what's the will of the board? Well, Commissioners, I would move that we approve the application for the grant, and if awarded, approve acceptance of the grant, authorize chairman or his designee to sign all the necessary documents.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, call a vote.
Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Chairman Unruh.
Aye.
Thank you.
And Marilyn, before I say thank you, I want to mention the fact that you're right at retirement, and you will
I
not
am.
be presenting to us again.
I will not.
And you've been here how many years?
24 years.
Well, I would say that during my time as a commissioner, I've become your friend. We become friends,
Yes,
and I really
yes.
appreciate that. But I also appreciate your leadership for ComCare and the excellent work that you've done, excellent work your staff has done as you've organized that. You've been fundamental in several initiatives that have proved really beneficial to our county government, to our citizens, to people with mental health issues who need help. You've been a rock star, and
Thank you.
We'll miss you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item.
Item J, report of the Board of Bids and Contracts regular meeting of September 7, 2017.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Joe Thomas, Purchasing Director. The meeting on September 7th of the Board of Bids and Contracts, there was one item that came from that meeting, and this is related to the ambulances for emergency medical service and fleet management. Our recommendation is to accept the best proposal from American Response Vehicles and American Emergency Vehicles and establish contract pricing for 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you may have regarding this contract, and I recommend approval of this item.
Thank you, Joe. Commissioners, are there any comment or question? All right. What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion we approve the recommendations of the Board of Bids and Contracts.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Chairman Unruh.
Aye.
Thank you,
Joe.
Commissioners.
And thank you to your team that came in for support. You brought the whole group here. Next item, please.
Consent agenda.
Commissioners, Mike Scholes, County Manager, recommend you approve consent agenda items Kilo through Victor.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, call a vote.
Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Chairman Unruh.
Aye. And do we have legislative issues today? Okay, then we'll move to the next item, which I believe is other. And Commissioners, do you have any issues that you'd, or comments or announcements or whatever you'd like to say? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two things. First, we had our meeting in Hayesville last week with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment regarding the water contamination issue. It was extremely well attended. KDHE was much more on their game. Of course, it helped that we had State Representatives Steve Crum and John Whitmer there, and State Senator Dan Kirshen made it out. So KDHE was definitely a little bit more accommodating to the concerns of the citizens, which was great. Of course, Susan and Cindy from our environmental department were there as well to talk to any residents. So I was very encouraged by that. I know the residents of the area of impact, that they keep calling it, were very happy that KDHE came out and had a second meeting. And so we'll be having another one here probably in about 6 weeks, definitely this fall. The other thing I wanted to mention was the Wichita School District member for Southwest Wichita, my district, Jeff Davis, announced his resignation this week. I'd like to thank him for his years of support. He's there a decade. He also was on the Wichita Police Force for decades, so I know Deputy Manager Tom Stoltz knows Captain Davis very well, and he was a great man. So residents in Southwest Wichita can apply for that appointment on the Wichita School Board, and I know the Eagle's written a couple articles about it, but you just have to live in the southwest portion, so District 4. You would just need to live there, and it's going to be big shoes to fill. But thank you, Captain Davis, for your decade of support to the kids of 259, and I look forward to working with the next school board member. I definitely have my preference in the race, but don't need to get into that today.
Okay.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to congratulate the zoo, the entire staff, and the zoo board for an outstanding Zubilee that we just had last Saturday night. The place was absolutely packed. Everyone seemed to be having a great time. We got to feed giraffes. The elephants were out. They were rocking to the music with all the rest of the folks that were there. So it was a great evening, a great fundraiser, and I know it was an awful lot of work, but I want to congratulate the folks that put that on. They did a tremendous job. Just two other brief things. This weekend we'll be celebrating the 70th birthday of the United States Air Force, and I know several of us will be going to that event. I believe Commissioner Howell will be attending. I think manager will be attending. So it again is a great way to recognize our premier service.
Yeah. Well, thank you. The animals had an opportunity to view a bunch of other wild animals that night, so it was a great event.
One final thing is that I think last meeting I said the wrong date for the Veterans Day Parade. It is November 11th. It is Veterans Day, and a number of folks from Sedgwick County will be participating in that. And also on November 8th, if any of our veterans would like to attend at Century 2, is a formal military parade with 2,000 cadets that will be doing pass review in honor of our veterans. That's at 10 o'clock in the morning on November the 8th at Century 2. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. I see no one else wanting to speak, so we don't have an executive session, so I will adjourn the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners and call to order the Board of County Commissioners sitting as the governing body of Fire District Number 1, September 13th, 2017. Madam Clerk, first item.
Roll call. Commissioner Dennis?
Present.
Commissioner Ranzo?
Present.
Commissioner Howell?
Present.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Present.
Chairman Unruh.
Present. And next item.
Public agenda.
No one has signed up to speak, so we'll go to the next item.
Consideration of minutes. Item A, regular fire meeting minutes of July 12th, 2017.
Commissioners, we actually have 4 sets of minutes to consider today, and
I'll move that we approve all 4 minutes for July 12th, July 19th, July 31st, and August 2nd, 2017, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Ranzau was absent at 1 meeting, but I don't think that precludes him from voting on these minutes. So, Madam Clerk, is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, call the vote, please.
Commissioner Dennis?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzo?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Chairman Unruh.
Aye. Is there anything else to come before the Fire District? Seeing nothing else, and we will adjourn the Fire District. And that adjourns our meeting for today. Thank you all.
Production and broadcast costs for Sedgwick County Commission meetings have been underwritten by Sedgwick County. KPTS welcomes comments from the public on its broadcast of the County Commission hearings. Viewers are invited to write to County Commission Broadcast, KPTS 320 West 21st Street, which